in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so
Stop giving a shit so much.
Hey you. Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. A podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz, back with another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. I am so excited for this week's episode because it is part of the monthly series where I invite a friend of mine on the show and give them absolutely no context about what we're going to talk about. I call this bringing a friend on the show and telling them only that I'm going to interview them about something I think they're an expert at that many other people aren't. I don't give them any other details. I don't tell them what the questions are. They have no idea what the topic is. So first of all, I am so grateful for the friends who have agreed to do this series on the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. I'm also so grateful for them for just sitting through these interviews without being able to really rehearse what they're going to say or know what kind of advice they're going to give you. It is the rawest and the realest way to get to know these people, but to also hear them in their truest, most authentic form talk about something that I really think they're great at, that maybe they didn't realize they're so great at. Now, today's guest is extra special to me because I am bringing on my old boss. Yes, this is my old boss from when I worked a full-time job. It was my last full-time job before I went full-time on my own. This was my boss when I worked at a tech startup. I loved my job fully and dearly, and I really loved working with this person. But unfortunately, after about 2.5 or 3 years of working at this company, we both got laid off. Those kinds of things happen at startups, and here we are now. Okay, so today's guest is Josh Clark. He is a creative director with over 15 years experience creating award-winning work for high-profile clients across many different industries. I really loved working with Josh, not only because of his very funny and witty and creative personality, but because he was somebody who was able to push me and help me expand my job, my writing, my work when I worked for him. And after we got laid off, we still kept in touch. We still remained friends over the years. Of course, we don't see each other as much as we ever did when we worked together, but it's nice to know that there's a person like Josh out there in the world, and I've loved keeping in touch with him. I brought him on for this month's friend episode because the thing he's an expert at is something that a lot of us struggle with, especially as we're about to approach something that means a lot to us, whether it's a career change or a project in our career, whether it's a relationship, whether it's just us taking the next step in our own personal journey and adventure. So Josh's topic is something that I really think is going to guide you and prepare you during the month of January in a brand new year when you're looking at yourself, you're looking at your goals, and you're wondering how you're going to show up as the best human being you can to approach all of those things and get them done. I can't wait for you to dive into all of Josh's advice. I guarantee you will laugh during this episode. That is for sure going to happen. But you'll also learn a little bit more about me and my time working with Josh, also my brief stint with stand-up comedy, and so much more. And as always, if you like the show, I beg you, I plead with you to share it with a friend. Let somebody else know to listen to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. Post it on social media. Tag us at Any Younger, at Jen Glantz. I will repost everything you post about this podcast. It means so much to me. And if you have an extra 5, 10, 15 seconds and you're listening to this on iTunes, just scroll down on your app, give us a couple stars, hopefully 5 stars, and leave us a review. All of that helps me keep the show running strong. Also, if you want to come hang out with me and you want to meet this week's guest, Josh Clark, come hang out with both of us in the You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. There are over 1,500 people inside that group, chatting, talking, helping each other, sharing advice. Josh is in that group. He's been in that group for a while. So if you have any questions for him, go to the You're Not Getting Any Younger group on Facebook. Drop him in there and come say hello. And finally, the other new series we are launching with this podcast, the Pick Me Up series. If you have a problem, a question, something that you personally want advice on, drop me a short voicemail and I will answer that question on an upcoming episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. If you want to do that, and I hope you will do that, head to speakpipe.com/Jen Glantz. That's speakpipe.com/Jen Glantz. You can see it below in the notes for the show today. It's completely free. You'll drop me a short voicemail and audio file with the question you have, and I will answer it in the Pick Me Up episode coming out later this month. All right, my friend, sit back, get those earbuds nice and comfy in your ear canals, and listen to this week's episode with my friend, my old boss, Josh Clark. This episode is brought to you by finallythebride.com. If you didn't know, I am getting married this year, but the problem is I am the worst at making decisions. I've been to so many weddings on my own. I need your help. Finally, The Bride is a project I launched a couple of months ago after getting engaged, where strangers can come on the website and vote on all different things. There are new polls released on the first of the month, and the cool thing is I am writing about the entire experience, so you can check out how things are unfolding. I release a new chapter of the book every single month, so head to the website, vote your heart away, and sign up to get the book. It drops in your inbox on the 15th of the month with a new chapter inside. Finallythebride.com. Help me plan this wedding, especially because in 2020, everything's gotten weird. Hey, Josh. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jen. It's been a while.
I know. I was so excited to talk to you because we haven't really been able to talk one-on-one in a while, and I want to explain how we know each other. But first, I want you to answer one of the pressing questions that I love to ask people, which is, if you were at a party, how would you describe who you are and what you do to a complete stranger?
Wow. That's a good one. Who I am and what I do for a complete stranger. I would say, hello, I'm Josh. And what I do is try to live my life and be creative and try to make other people laugh along the way.
I love it. And those are the words that I would use for you, is the making people laugh, especially that. And I want to talk a little bit about how we know each other. How many years do we know each other? Because I can't even put it
was it 2012, I think we were working together? I
think so. Wait. No, I want to say it was after. I want to say it was 2014.
14? Oh my gosh, I'm getting old, I guess.
All I remember is that I applied for this job to be a copywriter at a startup. And I don't think I was super qualified, but I remember going on the interview, and Josh interviewed me because you were going to be my boss. And I remember sitting there and just thinking, like, I really hope I get this job, but I was so unqualified. I even feel like you told me maybe that I wasn't that qualified for it. Do you remember?
I remember the interview vaguely. I knew you had some drive, and I knew you were certainly a cultural fit. But yeah, I mean, you certainly didn't have the experience as far as like in that particular industry, but I just had a good feeling, and I think it worked out, and we both ended up working a lot together, and it was fun.
Yeah, we worked together for 3 years. It was, and I'm not even exaggerating or kidding, it was definitely the best job I've ever had in my whole life, like the best full-time job I've ever had, because working with Josh was always super funny. And some of the things that I remember are the most funny, that if anyone is listening to this that worked with us, this could get Josh in trouble. I don't know how, but during meetings and stuff, Josh would go on, and Josh was like a big deal. Like, you were like the boss. You were like running meetings. You were on these calls, but like I'd look over your shoulder and you'd be on Facebook commenting on people's like discussion threads, commenting like the most incredibly funny advice. And it's
called multitasking, I think.
I just loved it because it was the first workplace that I ever worked at that I was like, oh, you could actually like have fun and still do your job. But long story short, Josh and I got laid off on the same day, and that sucked.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a tough one. But thanks for giving me the heads up, knowing I was going to get laid off before I even did, because you were there in the morning at 9 a.m. sharp to hear the news for yourself, and apparently from me.
Yeah, Josh and I were just talking about how I showed up early for work that day on the day I got laid off, like what a star employee I was. And I got laid off first, and then I called Josh, and I just had like a feeling that because him and we were like a team, that probably he was going to get laid off too. And it was interesting because it was the kind of job that I love. So I was devastated to be laid off, but I also was devastated that I wasn't going to get to work with you anymore. And I remember just feeling like so upset because you have your work friends, but then when your job ends, you don't see them every day. You know, I feel like you and I were like such good friends, and then the job ended, and it's impossible to stay that level of friends.
Yeah, it's true. Once you kind of depart from somewhere, it's really tough to keep in touch like that. It's interesting. With your whole bridesmaid thing, I remember we were working together on the day that you actually sent your Craigslist ad, and you came back and you were telling us about it, and I was there for like the inception of all of this. So that's a pretty big deal.
I remember when the ad went viral, I was like, oh shoot, I got to hide it from the job because I was scared that they were going to fire me. Not you. I knew you'd be cool about it, but I didn't want that to get out. But I also remember like cutting it very close, taking lunch breaks, but like going to do TV interviews. And it was really hard trying to multitask, like Josh would say, without getting caught. But you were always awesome about it. I feel like you were the kind of person who was like, I don't really care what you do outside of work. And like, I don't know, you were really supportive.
Yeah, as long as you were getting the stuff done, it's like, any side projects, I'm always a fan of that.
I also felt this, like, obviously I wasn't qualified for the job because I didn't have any copywriting experience. But even though I got the job and I did the job, you were always a better writer than I was, especially when it came to this kind of writing. So I feel like I also really enjoyed working for a person who was better at me than my job, which I really liked. I always thought you were much better. That. You were so much better than I was, and I think it made me a better writer. So I should give you some writing credit. If I ever make it big, I should give you
some. So can you just add my name to the bottom of Bridesmaid for Hire, or some kind of thank you section, maybe in the acknowledgments? That would be helpful.
I feel like you're going to use this one day to sue me for millions if I ever.
Yes, I want yeah. I want 20% of every page that's read.
Okay, so I wanted you to come on the show today, and I'm doing this like new thing where I'm inviting friends on, but not telling them the topics. I don't know why. I think it just is like pandemic excitement to do this, but I'm inviting you on the show today to talk about a topic that I think you're an expert at, that I don't think other people are an expert at. And before I tell you the topic, I want to know if you have any guesses. What do you think we're talking about today that I think you're an expert at?
Being an amazing boss, potentially. No.
Great guess. That is the truth, but not the answer.
Let's see. I would say binging Netflix during COVID is probably a good one for me.
Honestly, that would be extremely relatable, but I have a feeling there's a lot of experts in that category. Anything else that you would think?
I don't know. You've really got me stumped on this one. I would say.
Yeah, I feel like you're not being true to yourself because you're good at so much.
What would be one to being true to myself?
Okay, what if I give you a clue? It starts with the letter C.
Charisma, being charming. Am I in the ballpark now?
You're moving closer. Okay, I will tell you. I think, and this is in multiple areas, I have 4 main ones that I want to talk about, but in 4 main areas, I think that you are an expert at this one thing that's with a C that a lot of people aren't, and they strive to become more of. I think that you are an expert in confidence.
I can see that.
Oh, you can? Okay,
Of course I am. I'm actually the best at that.
Okay, I really think you are. And I think you are in a couple of different situations. I think you are in the relationship setting with dating. And I know this because for the majority of the time that I worked with you, I was single trying to date and you were extremely helpful. So relationships and dating, but also in the job situation, I think you could, if I ever was a boss and I had to interview you, like you would crush any job interview. So I think you have confidence with how you speak about yourself, but also because we are in a creative field, I think you have confidence in delivering ideas and believing in ideas, especially when like there's something at stake, whether it's a yes or a no. And then the final part that I think you have confidence in is humor. And I'm going to talk about how I know that specifically. So I want to talk about number one is the relationship aspect of it. And this episode is going to come out around Valentine's Day. And there's a lot of people who are single or they're in relationships. But when you are somebody who is dating or you're somebody in a relationship, how do you become confident with maybe admitting your feelings about a person or even bringing your real self into the relationship?
Wow. I feel like I should be on like Dr. Phil right now or something like that. This is amazing. Wow. I don't know. I think you just have to just say it. You can't just overthink things. You kind of got to just say, you live once, just say it. What's the worst that could happen? It's like, I mean, obviously with Rebecca, my lovely fiance, I probably said it way too soon. I was way overconfident. But she's the best. But I think for people, it's just like you just have to just go out there and say it. If you're on a first date or whatever, it's like, or you're on your fifth date and or 10th date. It's just like what's the worst that could happen? You have to say it, and even just like you have to put people on your same level. Like if you're in an interview, right? You just have to walk in there and just say, look, this happens or it doesn't matter. And I think the more you do it, just the better you get at it. It's like being an actor, and like the first few times you go into an audition, it's like you get devastated when you don't get the call back. But like once you just stop giving a shit, you just walk in there and just say, I'm just going to do this and just walk away and then be done. All of a sudden it becomes easier and you just walk in there with more confidence.
Yeah, but what about the people who are paralyzed by fear of rejection, whether in love or jobs, because if they put themselves out there and they're not used to getting those no's. I think people like you and I are used to it because of the work we've done, that the industry we're in, it's all about the no's, right? But for the average person who doesn't get rejected all the time, how do you stop giving a shit?
Honestly, just get rejected more. Just go out there and start getting rejected more. It's really a numbers game. My grandfather once said, if you throw enough shit against the wall, something will stick. So it's really is a numbers game. If you got rejected, if you had 100 no's last week, this week your first no is not going to feel so bad. It's not going to be as bad. It's totally a numbers game. I would highly recommend just like embracing the failure and like going out there and saying, hey, I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to reach out to this person, or I'm going to go on this interview. I'm just going to say my piece, and then if it doesn't happen, I move on to the next one, because there's always another one. So it's really a numbers game. It's just the same thing with everything. If it's like public speaking, you get up on stage once, it's terrifying, but like the 10th time, the 15th time, the 20th time you do it, it just becomes like, what to expect, and you failed once. So it's like, it's just not as bad, as you go forward.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, don't realize that there's, like what you said, there's always another one. And if you think about it, I know for myself specifically, everything I ever wanted, I didn't get. I got rejected, but there was something else. There was that other thing that ended up being better sometimes. So, there is, and the same thing with relationships. Like you enter these relationships and you think like, oh, if this doesn't work out with this person, like I'm never going to meet someone else. But that's not the truth, So I appreciate you saying that there is always another one, because sometimes we forget that fully.
Yeah. I mean, I did my fair share of dating apps back in the day, and it's like, I went on my fair share of first dates. And once you just stop giving a shit, honestly, the date goes much better. You just, and you learn what to just, ask them the random questions that you might be afraid to ask them, and just put them on the spot. And it's like, it makes it more interesting. And it also makes, you see like, how they react to certain things. And it's like, I just think the more you do it, the just easier it gets.
Do you view life and situations as just one big social experiment?
Yeah, it's one huge game.
That's the word.
It's totally one huge game. Yesterday I was walking down the street with Rebecca, and there was a guy there, and I was like, what if we just started a snowball fight with this guy right now? Just like, what do you think he would do? Right? Like, what do you think he would do? Granted, I lost that battle and we didn't, but like, that's what I think about when I'm walking. I'm like, what if we just said to this guy, like, what if I was just like, no, compliment that person on their shirt just to see what happens. Just, as like I said, it's really all a social experiment. It's all just one big game. And, the more you play, the more fun it is. And I think that, sometimes you can, fear or, being hesitant can really hold you back to certain things. Like, go and ask that person a question. You never know who that person's going to be. You never know, if that person will engage with you, and what could happen because of that. So I just say, just put it all out there and just try to mix it up a little bit, because you have literally nothing to lose. You try to think about what you have to lose. Okay, maybe the snowball fight, the guy could have potentially hurt me and put me in the hospital, but obviously I would have picked my snowball victim accordingly to make sure I was bigger than them. However, but like, in other aspects, I think just go for it. I mean, unless there's a really detrimental thing, like that could really be a huge risk, then like the small risks, if nothing's going to happen to you, just go for it, because you just never know. 9 times out of 10, nothing might happen, but that one time something cool happens, and there you go.
What do you think it is about you and your life that's made you this way? Were you always like this? Was there a turning point? Because, it's rare to be like this unless you've gone through something or you've just gone through so much rejection. So like, what was that moment where you realized you were like this, playing this game of life?
I don't know. My dad is certainly a zero filter, hilarious, outgoing, amazing guy. And I think certainly a lot came. I mean, my mom's amazing too. Hi, Mom. She's, she has more of my, responsible, good head on the shoulders side. But I don't know. I think that once you start getting like the responses or the reactions, then like, or the, you start seeing something come of it, then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, like what else can I do? What else can I apply this to? Right. Like, I was making these spec spots back in, I don't even want to tell you what year, but a long time ago when I was early in my career. And I was like, I want to get this amazing cinematographer to shoot these spec spots for us. And we reached out to this amazing guy who is like Academy Award winning. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. But it's like, he, for free. He would just do it just because he had some time. And it's like, once like that moment happened, I was like, wait a second, like if I ask other people for things, like, or like I try to, make headway with a company or a person or whatever, like maybe somebody will say yes, like maybe something that'll happen. But as far as like, oh, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was gonna say, like, there was actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, there was actually one moment when I was a PA I did an internship in LA back in college, and I wanted to be a PA. Just like that, which is like the lowest level on the set. The guy lugging trash cans and driving trucks. So I found out that production managers hire PAs. So I just went to like this list of production managers and literally called all of them. And I was like, or emailed all of them, called all of them. It was like 100 of them, and like 5 of them got back to me, and they're like, yeah, sure, you can come work on the set. We're shooting tomorrow. Like, come on down. That'd be great. So it's just like, once you try it and it works, it just becomes like, what else can work? What else can work? And then when it works and you're actually adding value to someone or making someone laugh or bringing joy to someone, it's like, wait, that feels good. Let me try that again. Let me try that again. And then how can I do that on a larger scale? And how can I do that on a larger scale? And then it's just like, I'm not a stand-up comedian by any stretch, but you imagine like a comedian that tells a joke on stage. When the audience laughs, it just fuels them to keep going, and it's like this cycle. But yeah, no, it's definitely fulfilling. But we definitely got to get over that hump, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's almost it becomes almost an addiction of like, how can I keep pushing this? And sometimes you push it too far, but for the most part, for a lot of people, you just keep pushing it until you keep getting what you want. You get closer to what you want, but something I think you're good at that, some days I feel like I'm not so good at is owning your uniqueness. I want to say like your weirdness, like, you're a certain kind of person and I like adore your personality. I think you are like top funny people I know. how do you own this though? Because there's going to be some people in the world who would look at you or look at me and be like, they're so weird, they're so this. So like, how do you get over the obsession with what other people think about you if that's what you care about?
That's the biggest thing. It's like eventually you just stop giving a shit. You just stop giving a shit what people think. You really, I mean, it's easier said than done, and it's like you just stop caring. Like, if you say something or you make a joke in a crowd or something, and you're not sure if it's going to be funny, or it's like, who's that person? How are they going to affect you? Who gives a shit? It's like, it's like there's this really long line at the amusement park. Let's just say that woman over there is like our grandmother, and we're going to try to cut to the front of the line. Worst thing that can happen is that they just say no. But we've done that. It's like you try these little things. It's like, we were taking a tour of like Harvard University once, and there was this no one's allowed in. There's a sign that says, "Don't go in this door." Like, don't go in this door. And I was like, well, that's a sign for me that says come in the door, right? So, but I'm like, look, what's the worst thing going to happen? What are they're going to arrest us? What's going to happen? So we walk in this way. We walk into this beautiful, enchanting, amazing, like this amazing, like cathedral type thing. And it was just there was like some music practice happening. And it was just like this really special moment. Like it would have just never happened if we were like, okay, let's obey every little rule. It's like certain rules you shouldn't break, like, don't murder people. But like, just a matter of just pushing the boundary. If you push the boundary a little bit, all of a sudden you get a lot back, and then it just becomes more addictive. And you just gotta don't get arrested.
That is a good message to send everyone. But
yeah, PSA: please don't get arrested and don't murder.
Yeah, don't blame this show or Josh and I. I want to talk about humor because years ago I took a stand-up comedy class, and the end of the class we had to perform at a stand-up comedy club, and Josh wrote all my jokes. He wrote pretty much every joke, but the problem was
I helped you with your jokes. You had the seed of jokes. I just polished it.
The problem wasn't the joke, it was the delivery, because even the days, because every week in class you had to show up with jokes, so most of the time Josh would lend me some, but the problem was that when I would deliver the jokes, they would fall flat because it just wasn't, I don't know, there was a lot wrong with me in comedy. But this is what I want to ask you. A lot of people, they want to be funny. They want to go to a job interview and have a humor. They want to go on a date and make someone laugh. So what are your 3 top keys to humor? Because again, you are literally one of the funniest people I've ever met, especially on the spot. So what are your tips for making humor land?
Wow. From someone who's actually not a comedian or a comedy writer, this is a great question. I would defer you to many friends of mine who are actually funny. No, I think that detail, you got to have detail. You got to, that surprising level of detail, and like going that one step further is definitely, a key. Delivery is obviously huge, but everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own, delivery style. I mean, what works for me might not work for you. I don't know what works for you, to be honest with you. I'm just kidding. Just joking, Jen.
No, seriously. I just remember delivering some of Josh's jokes, and the punchline was so cringeworthy for me to say that I would be on stage cringing, because I'm not a natural curse word user. I'm pretty PG, and some of Josh's jokes were a little edgy, and I'd go up there and be like, I'd say a bad word, and it was just the delivery of Jen was horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I you're actually making me want to go take a stand-up class.
You don't need the class. Sometimes when I think about you, if I had to describe you, I'd be like, oh, he's a comedian. So I don't even realize that you're not a trained comedian, because
I'm not.
You're naturally so funny. And I think that that's something that a big part of it is that you also just believe in what you're saying. You believe what you're saying is funny.
Well, if I ever did a stand-up comedy show, I'm glad I would at least have one fan in the audience, and her name is Jen Glantz.
I'd be dying in the front row. Just, I'd be thrilled. But how do you, I guess, believe that, when you say things, you say them in a way that you have zero doubt about what you're about to say?
Well, I think that knowing the person who you're saying it to is knowing knowing how they think and where their mind is, and it's tailoring the type of joke for them, knowing their history, knowing some background. I mean, obviously when you're doing stand-up, you're talking to whatever, which I imagine I have zero stand-up experience. But I imagine that you have to think about it a little differently since you're talking to, hundreds of thousands of people or whatever. But when you're just in the office talking, it's like, really tailoring it to who they are as well. But that just has to come quick and natural.
Yeah, no, I think, all of your tips are so incredible. And I think anyone listening to this can take a lot of great takeaways, especially just viewing life as a game, because why not? You can't live so afraid of everything. Anything else you want to share before we close this out?
I would just say I know the world is kind of crazy right now, but just like try to just not take everything too seriously. Try to just push yourself a little bit to be like, hey, what if I talk to this guy in the subway? Or actually, don't ride the subway, it could be dangerous. I'm just like, just try to just go outside of your comfort zone a little bit. Just go outside of your comfort zone. I mean, don't take your mask off and go to a kissing booth, but just try to do that one small thing that you don't think you can do or you're afraid to do. And I promise, just when you get that little bit of feedback, that little bit of result coming back to you in a positive way, whether it's a job, whether it's just a laugh, whether it's whatever, I'm telling you, it really makes a huge, huge difference. And it really can just change the way you kind of look at everyday situations, everyday life. And I think it's really, if you can get over that hump, it's really sort of freeing in many ways.
Yeah, I think that's what made you a great person to work for, because I'm somebody who takes everything very seriously. I'm somebody who is very emotional. And I think working for you, especially with the job we sort of had to do, you I guess really inspired me to take chances, but also to understand feedback and not take it to heart, So I think these are great lessons, but I think, you also act on your lessons because you helped me a lot. You really did. I really do mean that.
Well, I appreciate that, Jen.
And I miss working with you every day.
I know. It was a good time. And hopefully when all this world stuff clears up, we can have a proper drink together.
I agree. Okay, I got to end these interviews like I end them all. Going to ask you to fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger, so...
Stop giving a shit so much.
I love it. I feel like that's the perfect tagline and something that I need to do more of in 2021. Josh, please tell our listeners where they can find you if they want to say hello and commend you for your humor.
You can find me. Everything is on my website, joshuaclarkdirector.com. So feel free to hit me up, and hopefully we'll be in touch.
Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Jen.
Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.